What's up guys, it's Jordan here from SwitchWatch with today's review of The Witcher 3. Before we get into this review, full disclosure, this review was mostly written by Tom, who writes for our website switchwatch.co.uk. He's played hundreds of hours of The Witcher 3 and he's by far the bigger expert than me, Juan or James could ever be, so there was really no decision in the end as to who should write this one. So he focused on the meat of the game from his previous experience, the gameplay, story, the music, what is universal about the game no matter where you play, while I chipped in talking about the visuals, performance and value that I found in this Nintendo Switch port. The port itself basically, right? Which is what you want to know, so let's dive straight into that part. What is this port like then? Well, let's take a look. Coming from someone who's only played The Witcher 3 in passing over at a friend's house for like half an hour, even I can tell it's taken a massive hit in the visual department here. The Witcher 3, even to this day, is still a stunning game to look at. Both the art style and graphical fidelity are still envied even with it almost pushing 5 years old. But going into this Nintendo Switch port with fresh enough eyes, I have to say, it's visually quite rough. You can instantly see the huge cutbacks just to get this running on the system. The frame rate is mostly solid, but with a few rough patches every once in a while, and it's had big sacrifices just to get it like that. Outside, in the open, there's a constant washed out haze over everything, lots of dithering, but it's the environmental foliage that's the biggest offender here. When it's not popping into the frame half a second late, it just looks so low quality. Looking away from the original versions of this game, I'm trying to think about if this was the only version that exists. Would this be impressive? Is it acceptable? It's a tough one because there are sections in this port that are some of the best looking things the Nintendo Switch has ever done. The star of the visual show is the cutscenes. Character models and facial animations are truly exceptional. I don't think there's been anything like this on the Switch before. As long as you ignore the random texture pop-ins and glitches behind the characters, of course. Inside buildings, the game looks very, very impressive too. If the entire game took place inside of a castle, this would be mind-blowing on the Nintendo Switch. But considering it's mostly an open-world game full of vast, far-reaching landscapes while traveling at speeds on a galloping horse, it's those parts where you kind of think that they may have been a little bit too ambitious with this port. While I have no evidence to back this claim up, the difference between docked and handheld seemed to be negligible enough, and in that regard, playing in handheld mode is easily the way to go to make this a much more palatable and excusable reason for a port. It's The Witcher 3 while you're riding the bus to work, school, on your lunch break, or while you're laying in bed. In that regard, it kind of all makes sense. It's balked, glitchy, and not the most satisfying way to play, but it's The Witcher 3 while taking a dump. On a TV, not so much. If you're thinking of getting this with playing on the TV in mind, then I highly advise you getting it for a stronger console or the PC. It is not the miracle port that we were hoping for, but in handheld, I'll take it. And before we get into the story section, don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you are new here. Not only do you get our awesome content including 2 weekly series, but you'll also have the chance of winning a Nintendo Switch Lite and a copy of The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening once we reach 50,000 subscribers. Come on guys, it could be you, and spread the word so we can get there faster. Okay, the story. The Witcher games are loosely based on a series of novels by Polish author Andrzej Sapkowski. Apologies if I got that wrong. And they focus mainly on the titular Witcher, a grizzled monster hunter named Geralt of Rivia. The Witcher games themselves have entirely separate storylines from the novels, and Witcher 3, even though it is the third game in the series, can be played as a standalone title by anyone who has no previous experience with the predecessors. So, Switch owners, you don't need to feel like you're missing out on anything by not playing the other games, although it would be nice to get them too. Anyways, the main story in Witcher 3 focuses on Geralt's quest to rid the world of the Wild Hunt, a band of supernatural warriors intent on capturing Ciri, the Emperor's daughter, who alone has the ability to defeat the encroaching and all-consuming White Frost, a deadly ice-like substance that can wipe out all life in its path. While the overarching plot is fairly straightforward, the meandering subplots and side quests mean that Witcher 3's main storyline can become quite complicated as it progresses, with the first half of the main quest being more like a manhunt than anything else. You'll be traversing gigantic game worlds across open countryside through cave systems, visiting huge cities, tiny hamlets, grand palaces, searching for clues and helping villagers and their lords alike out of various binds, while keeping one eye out on the main quest of finding Ciri and staying one step ahead of the pursuing Wild Hunt. It's entirely possible to get completely sidelined by some of the incredible side quests, some of which could be entire games in themselves. Let's just say that this is a game with multiple stories, both big and small, and you will enjoy losing yourself within this massive, engrossing fantasy world.
Bad idea.
So, Geralt of Rivia is a monster hunter, highly trained in the business of monster hunting. Played from a third-person perspective, this epic role-playing adventure sees you traversing the various areas of a grand overworld, engaging in conversations with NPCs, fighting against all manner of ghoulish enemies, finding loot, and learning new abilities and spells to aid you in your quest. Traveling around this vast expanse of open world can be done either on foot, via fast travel, to signposts that you've already discovered, or astride Geralt's faithful steed, Roach, who can be upgraded with armor and other passive abilities. The locations that Geralt will travel to in the course of the adventure range from dark forests to sun-drenched fields of golden corn to the bustling streets of various towns and cities dotted around the world. Island archipelagos can be visited by boat, sunken treasures will be discovered, and mountaintop castles covered in snow will need to be ransacked. The range of environments is truly bewildering, and most of them will reveal new items or an intriguing side quest to be tackled. The world feels lived in and alive, with wildlife roaming freely, bands of outlaws setting up camps in forgotten forest clearings, crumbling castles laying in partial ruin just begging to be explored. A day and night cycle changes the dynamic of the world further, with certain nocturnal animals only venturing out once the sun goes down, and city streets being patrolled by bands of soldiers looking to keep the peace. Combat plays a major role in this game, with Geralt being equipped with two swords, one for dealing with monsters and the other for dealing with mortals, and an arsenal of offensive and defensive spells and passive abilities, all of which can be enhanced with mutagens and potions. Combat isn't quite as refined as other games of this type, with traditional shields not playing any part whatsoever, and Geralt relying on dodges and rolls to evade enemy strikes. That said, Geralt does have the ability to cast magical spells that grant immunity from attacks, and is also pretty adept at deflecting incoming arrows and sword swipes using his own blade. There's also the opportunity to use ranged, magical attacks and a trusty crossbow if things get a bit too dicey, close up and personal. It is a game that will take a while to get used to the controls for this area. Combat doesn't come quite as naturally as perhaps other games, and finding where your fingers need to go and what button does what can be quite confusing at first, but after a few hours, you will get used to it and you'll love taking down any enemy that comes your way. The bigger, the better. Crafting of items is also another aspect of Witcher 3 that players will have to become adept at. Every corpse, house, bandit camp and pile of junk in the environment can be looted for items, the vast majority of which can be either used to create something more useful or sold at the various shops and trading posts dotted throughout the world in exchange for currency. This is both a chore and a blessing, as every item has a weight attribute and carrying too much useless junk hinders Geralt's ability to run. But conversely, finding food items is helpful as they can be consumed to revitalize Geralt's health meter. Armor, rune stones which give weapons and armor different attributes, swords, boots, gloves, it can all be mixed and matched, creating an immense number of different combinations that can improve your abilities against certain enemies, or in certain environments and situations. Some items are specifically required for particular quests to be completed, but for the most part, collecting of loot is entirely optional. If you're the type of gamer who enjoys digging down into crafting though, creating potions and using blueprints to create new armor and weapons, or simply charging a blacksmith or armor to do it for you, then The Witcher 3 will be right up your alley. From tracking down serial killers in the medieval cities of Novigrad, to hunting werewolves terrorizing rural communities, to acting as a peacemaker in petty squabbles between entire armies, Witcher 3 offers hundreds of hours of quests and additional plots that add an extra dimension to the world, making it feel like a living, breathing ecosystem. If you decide to embark on the tantalizing quest offered by CD Projekt Red's adventure, do so in the knowledge that you will be taken on a journey lasting many hours. We'll see a vast number of different locations and take on a ridiculous number of side quests along the way. Though the game is huge and the maps are very large, it never feels so big that you can't find your way to the next objective or another interesting side quest, and the variety means that it never gets boring or repetitive. And while Witcher 3 may at first seem like an impenetrable, overwhelming title, it quickly becomes an absorbing and highly addictive experience, and one that both newcomers and fans of the genre will want to keep playing to the very end and beyond. And perhaps, now that it's on the Nintendo Switch, maybe you'll actually be able to finish it this time. Once the main quest has been seen to, this Switch port also comes with the DLC quest Blood and Wine and Hearts of Stone. While both of these add-ons take place in the same locations as the main game, Blood and Wine also introduces a whole new location complete with its own unique feel, and both offer additional hours of gameplay and fantastic storytelling, all supported, as in the main game, by an outstanding cast of supporting characters. You can choose to play these separate from the main game if you want to, even right upon booting the game up for the first time. You're not forced to slog through like 30 hours of the main game before you're allowed to go near. Nope, you can do them right from the off, and that's awesome of the developers to allow that. The Witcher 3's music is really quite special. For the most part, it really drives home the sorrowful and slightly downtrodden life that many of the game's inhabitants live in. With mournful dirges being the order of the day, the ambient music that plays as Geralt wanders the windswept environments adds so much atmosphere to proceedings. However, subtle variety is key here, with taverns and inns having jovial music and battles employing a more energetic sounding composition to match the action. After many hours of the game, Witcher 3 soundtrack will undoubtedly be imprinted in your memory, and while it is rarely hummable, the distinct use of instruments and audio cues enhances the adventure no end. Taking a look at value, there are two hands that need to be looked at. Firstly, the ridiculous amount of content here, and not only that, but quality content too. As has been stated by Tom many times, this world is so vast, so full of things to do, so full of life, plus with all the DLC. Most people wouldn't dare scoff at the eShop price of £50 in the UK, $60 in the US, and €60 in Europe. You are looking at potentially 100 hours of awesome content, perhaps more if you really want to do everything, and those are great immersive hours too. On the other hand, a very fair hand, it's been on other consoles for years and is at a bargain basement price right now. Plus, this Switch port is hardly a feat of human achievement. It's not the best port ever, so I do understand if some are wary, especially if they can get it on other systems. It's worth noting that CD Projekt Red and Saber Interactive have managed to fit pretty much everything in a physical cartridge with no mandatory download required. The full game and all DLCs are on one juicy fat cartridge. Why don't all publishers do this? I'm looking at you, Ubisoft, with your Starlink and your Assassin's Creed Rebel collections, and I'm looking at you, Activision, with your Spyro, and the fact that they've managed to squeeze all of the game on one cartridge with no download required. I think that's enough just to reward a purchase anyway, right? They're supporting the consumer, so we will support them. I do believe that you can download additional languages though, but I don't think that's a major point, also that's totally understandable. There is the physical release, of course, which also comes with some goodies like a compendium, stickers, and a map. Well worth it. If you want to order it off Amazon, and if you're in the US or UK, we'll pop some affiliate links in the description and pin comment where you can purchase the game and support the SwitchWatch team at the same time. Overall, The Witcher 3 is a legendary game for a reason. It's one of the most immersive worlds ever created, with a great story, lore, and it's so lived in. It's a massive game that you'll want to lose yourself to. It's now out on the Nintendo Switch, which was always thought to be an impossible task, and to be honest, that's almost proved correct with what's on offer here. It is a rough version of an all-time great. I personally would advise playing it on any other console aside from this one, unless you have no other options or you just want to play in handheld. I mean, if you have a PlayStation 4 but you want to play the Switch version on the TV, I have to ask what on earth you're doing. It's an amazing game, but not an amazing port. The game itself will get an instant 10, but the port makes this a 9 out of 10. Okay guys, special thanks to Tom for writing the lion's share of this review. Head over to switchwatch.co.uk to check out more of his stuff. Now perhaps watch a couple of our other recent reviews or features. I have a weekly physicals video telling you every physical game releasing in a given week. James puts out a video showing some of the lovely bargains available, and we all put together a video showing you all of the ball-busting hard games on the Switch that will make you want to rage. Check those out. We'll see you over there. Take care.